So thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. I am Thomas Johnson. I also go by TJ, really mostly go by TJ. I've been with Deft for a little over 3 years. I was a consultant for them for 2 years before that. I have a heavy regulatory background, and we have a lot of customers that have regulatory compliance needs. At Deft, I'm the person responsible for security, governance, compliance, and I also have legal and insurance that roll up to me. We have, like I said, a lot of folks that are in the under the regulatory umbrella. So a lot of the stuff that comes from a vendor management standpoint from our customers rolls into me and my team. I wanted to quickly share an intro to Deft with you, as you're probably thinking, I'm not sure who these folks are. You might not have ever heard of us, but we are the old Server Central. We've been in business for quite some time. We merged with the Touring Group, which was an advanced AWS partner. So we do a data center services, hybrid cloud, all the way to full public cloud. We are an IT managed services provider, and we have clients all around the world with a comprehensive managed IT service set. Our customers, they range in size from startups to probably some of the largest and fastest growing companies on the planet. We work with tons of different companies. We leverage our expertise in data center, network services, and then public and private and hybrid cloud, all of the aspects of cloud, as well as disaster recovery. So we can deliver like a full managed, secure, and resilient hybrid environment for our clients. Just a couple of quick facts about Deft. We've been in business for 22 years now, starting way back in the year 2000. Some of us remember the year 2000 as being somewhat impactful, or maybe not. Today, we operate 14 core data centers. So that's on-prem co-location facilities. We provide network, cloud, and co-location services. So we have some private cloud and enterprise cloud capabilities within those locations. We also have 89 edge locations that provide local connectivity and content delivery. We serve hundreds and hundreds of clients that are spread across 53 industries. And I was even thinking, 53 industries. And as we kind of counted them up, sure enough, we have industries and sub-industries and stuff like that. So we kind of cover the gamut of industries, and I can't even imagine what industry we're probably not in, maybe farming. This is our 8th year as an AWS advanced partner. We have AWS MSP capabilities, and we also picked up the ability to do Azure as well. We've got 2 full years under our belt there, and are moving right into our 3rd year with Azure. So that kind of completes our whole ecosystem of providing like on-prem data center all the way through into public cloud with some private cloud, enterprise cloud, and custom cloud solutions wrapped into the middle. We've got 140 employees, and we have no outside investment. We're a private, profitable firm. We've achieved our position through measured growth, and we are always delivering for our clients, always. So that's enough about us. And if you'd like to know more, just let me know. We can chat after the session. And we'll get to the heart of the presentation right now. So nothing speaks excitement more than talking about security and compliance, as I'm sure everybody's probably like, yes. So I kind of wish this was more of a live environment, because I'd encourage you to give me the rally cry behind compliance conversations. But since we're virtual, I will assume that you're sharing an excitement here. In addition to that, I mean, nothing really speaks more than excitement than a conversation wrapped around policy and procedure. Everyone makes fun of me because I just do get a kick out of it. I love policy, procedure, and then all aspects of clients. I kind of grew up with it. As I mentioned, I've got over 25 years experience in highly regulated industries, so it's kind of in my blood. But today, I'm going to focus on hybrid and multi-cloud security best practices. Specifically, I'll be talking about an issue that is far more prevalent and much greater security and compliance threat than really realized. And that's the management of shared responsibility matrices. This is very much a vendor management challenge, and it fits right into that segment of information security under vendor management. You know, some of the more mature information security practices. So the problem, well, today IT is hybrid. I mean, we've got multiple clouds, multiple SaaS environments, we've got multiple custom apps, we've got multiple MSPs, systems integrators, and yeah, we have probably a data center provider out there. And it is not getting any simpler. A critical issue we're seeing is, and I'm going to highlight that today, is the often, if not always, forgotten responsibilities matrix. Who's doing what? Is the MSP or vendor responsible for some stuff? What are you responsible for? It's basically, you know, who's doing what, and really kind of solidifying that with your MSP, vendor, and yourself. This whole effort is not always in the form of a matrix, although, you know, we call it a vendor responsibility matrix. I like to create a matrix out of this, but, you know, some of this stuff might be really tucked away in a contract somewhere even. And, you know, quite frankly, sometimes it's really the result of, you know, folks outside of the purview of compliance that are architecting these deals and don't know the importance of the granularity of responsibilities within compliance. So there you have it. Here we are. Let's go through a scenario. We're going through some kind of an audit, for example, or maybe even a security review, and you get to a section and you're like, oh yeah, our MSP is certainly taking care of that. So you reach out to them and you pose a question about whether they're doing X, Y, or Z, or some kind of thing within compliance or the InfoSec arena. And what is their response? See if my animation works. It does. Probably unhappiness, maybe on both sides, some silence, delayed response, or the inability to respond. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating, you know, that the fact that they might be unable to answer what should be like a simple question regarding compliance and security. Their posture, your responsibility, their responsibility, and the ownership. Well, I have a couple of examples that will help put this into context and show where a well put together responsibilities matrix will help solve some ambiguity. First, let's take a look at identity and access management. This is something that comes up quite often for us. A mature, well understood aspect of security and compliance that continues to wreak havoc in organizations big and small is IAM and the responsibilities of it. I think when you're dealing with IAM in the context of a vendor relationship, there are certainly single sign-on opportunities, right? But not all vendors have the ability to integrate with your SSO solution, or in some cases, you might not want this to be. So that means that there is completely different system with permissions that, you know, must also be kept consistent with the organization. So you have your, you know, maybe you have Active Directory that is managing and governing IAM, and then you have your data center provider that is actually managing physical access, for example. Sometimes we get a request asking for like evidence that an IAM review was done, you know, and sometimes that happens quarterly. Typically that'll happen quarterly. But in most cases, this responsibility falls on the customer, and with the vendor or MSP or provider falls in suit with whatever is requested by the customer. And since the customer has really the source of truth or the master list of identities and roles, there needs to be an agreement with the vendor and the customer on whether the information is pulled by the vendor or pushed by the customer. You know, who does the reviews? How are they done? You know, what does onboarding and offboarding look like? And, you know, onboarding and offboarding, that typically falls through the procedural cracks a lot of times with the customer, and the vendor never gets the term notice for an employee. I mean, that happens more times than I'd be willing to admit. And that's unfortunate. Because we're, as a service provider, we're always looking for having the best, most up-to-date information, because security is paramount, especially on some of the physical access control stuff. So we need to understand not only what is being done, but is who is doing these reviews, and make sure the right people are on the list. And I think some of the bigger questions are what are the level of permissions for people, and what kind of levels of access are available for these folks. We need to understand that. We need to know that, because there might be some position changes within your organization that would really require them not to have access to, if we're managing an AWS environment, for example, not have access to some of the administrative capabilities, or even something as simple as having physical access to a data center. So we need to know all of that stuff, and having the responsibilities for IAM really baked out and dictated within a responsibility matrix is super important. And I think, unfortunately, like I said before, when some of these deals are created and architected, some of the information security and compliance folks are left out of that conversation, only to pick up the pieces a little bit later on. But I think the good thing is, at Deft, myself and my team are always ready and willing to help move things forward and get everybody on the right page here. So the second example I wanted to look at is PCI DSS, the payment card industry data security standards. I'll give you a little bit of an example to work with here. You're working with a vendor, and you are delighted to see that they are PCI compliant. Yes, you're like, yes, they're PCI compliant. It says it on their website. Perfect. Nothing to worry about here. But is there? You're like, oh, wait a second. They have an AOC, that's the attestation of compliance for PCI. Cool, perfect. Send me your AOC. Sure, no problem. We'll send it to you. I mean, we have an attestation of compliance for PCI, and we get requests for that all the time. But when your auditor's going through their evidence and sees that our AOC only covers requirement 9, which is physical access controls, I'm sure some anxiety starts to build, and we start to get questions. And this is probably the number one question we get is, hey, are you doing rogue wireless access point scanning? And the answer to that question is sometimes just straightforward yes, but because we want to have this enriched experience with our customers and show that the compliance is super important. We start to ask questions about what that really means, and the road wireless access point scanning, that is really an aspect that it's a little bit more than doing a scanner and trying to figure out if there's wireless access points that you haven't seen before, especially in a co-location facility where you have tons and tons of SSIDs broadcasting. So trying to figure out how to do a rogue wireless access point in a co-location data center is really challenging, especially when we're talking about doing this with your cardholder data environment, the CDE. The fact that some of this stuff should probably be baked out for some of our customers, especially the ones that have been doing PCI for a number of years, you would think that would be the case, but a lot of times we'll come across a new person that becomes in charge of compliance. They start asking uncomfortable questions, or maybe a customer will be going through their first year audit looking for answers. We really need to make sure that responsibilities are outlined for each aspect of PCI. This is like super important. Like I said, can we do wireless access point, rogue wireless access point scanning in our data center? Absolutely. But, like I said before, we need to correlate that with your CDE, your cardholder data environment, and make sure that what we are finding and what you're responsible for within your CDE are correlating. And I think this is especially going to be the case when PCI 4.0 comes out. I know a lot of folks are critical of PCI 3.2 And the fact that, some of the stuff, it's like, kind of a head shaker what they want you to do. But I think the 4.0 that's coming out is going to kind of enrich things and make a little bit more sense. One thing I want to note also, always remember when you rely on your MSP for the attestation of compliance or the AOC, you must understand what it applies to, what requirements are included, and who is responsible for each thing. For all the PCI folks out there, 12.8 typically covers a lot of this under the vendor management piece, but time and time again, we see a majorly abbreviated effort on this vendor requirement. So make sure that your responsibilities are certainly articulated, especially for PCI DSS, because that's going to affect your ability to take credit cards and can cause you some trouble there. So what do we do? I want to take away 5 things on this presentation. You've got multiple responsibility matrices, or you should have multiple responsibility matrices. Try to find them, or try to figure out what is in contracts, what things might be articulated, and where is everything. Try to figure out all of your critical service providers, people that you're sending data. Find each and every one to see if they are up to date, if they are current, if there are things that have changed, and go to the next step and do an initial gap analysis. Try to figure out who hasn't given you a responsibilities matrix. A lot of your service providers will have them already. Like, for example, we have them on HIPAA, PCI, and a couple other compliance areas. So try to figure out whose you don't have, and then look them over to make sure that what is happening with them and what you're expecting of your vendor is actually happening. This is totally a simple gap analysis. Just find out where the overlaps exist, where the gaps exist, and try to sort through that. Third thing, meeting time. You got to meet with each IT partner, especially the results of your gap analysis done in step 2. Make sure that what you are expecting of them, if it doesn't line up, you're going to need to make sure you cover that pretty quickly. And your vendor might come back with an additional SOW to help make that happen. That creates some kind of uncomfortable situations, especially after maybe a newly inked contract had happened and this was not covered. I try to get involved in a lot of our contractual conversations, especially when I see a customer that might have compliance-based requirements. So I try to get involved just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because I know this gets a little bit uncomfortable and kind of crazy after the fact. So meet with each partner, try to figure out whether there are any assumptions, anything that's written, documented. Try to document it and have a firm grasp on what your current situation includes or doesn't include. Revisit your gap analysis after all of these discussions and then see what remains. This is your final punch list. While some compliance requirements push the customer to get these responsibilities outlined, like for example, when I said, when I was talking about PCI, especially 12.8, kind of goes into some vendor management pieces. Some don't. Some certain compliance requirements like HIPAA don't specifically require you to do stuff like that, but there are some responsibilities that fall on the vendor and responsibilities that fall on the customer, and sometimes those don't meet. The customer might think that the vendor should be responsible for A, B, or C, but that might be somewhat impossible if you bake out that conversation with your vendor. If you're not asking these questions now, the next time you start asking questions, especially with HIPAA, is when you have a breach or a lawsuit. PCI, at least, you have an annual attestation you have to go through. HIPAA is very litigious, where if you have a breach, then it's showtime. Or if a lawsuit comes up, that's when the questions start getting asked and everyone gets uncomfortable. And then lastly, celebrate. Most importantly, you can certainly shoot me an email after you go through this effort. If you have any questions, I am certainly available. I'll share my contact information with the presenters here. And I'd like to know if this has been helpful, what you've learned. Was there anything surprising? What didn't surprise you? And yeah, if you're in the Chicagoland area, I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you sometime too. So to recap, and I know we kind of flew through this pretty quickly because we don't have a ton of time, but you know, there's a ton of best practices out there. We just touched on one, you know, and I felt it was important to highlight at least what we're seeing as one of the biggest challenges, and importantly, share with you some of the steps that we found to remediating this issue. And then a lot of that is really just communication, and communication. Those are the top three things with your vendor, and making sure that you're treating them as a partner and not just somebody that you're getting services from. And I think that's how we like to operate. I know that might kind of sound a little cliche, but you know, we really want to be a partner with our customers to try to help them through some of these compliance challenges. Because you know, at the end of the day, I know I kind of made a joke earlier in this presentation about, you know, this being like the most exciting topic of the world. What I mean, I really do think so. You know, nobody else thinks so. So trying to have this conversation and getting everybody on the same page is going to be an important aspect of making sure that you're not having uncomfortable conversations with your MSP or your vendor. I appreciate your time today. Certainly, if you have any questions, don't be shy. Reach out to me. I'm tjohnson@deft.com. I'll be happy to schedule some time to speak with you or dive into this topic further. Or if you're in the Chicagoland area, I'll be more than happy to grab a cup of coffee with you.